Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello viewers, Assalamu alaikum. This is Nahid Akhtar, Assistant Professor of Management, Department of Business Administration, Asian University of Bangladesh. Today I am going to talk about a very important topic, that is your action research model. This topic is from the course of Organizational Development. First of all, we will know about what is action research model. Action research model focuses on planned change as a cyclical process in which critical initial research about the organization provides information to guide subsequent action. Then the results of action are assessed to provide further information to guide further action, and so on. Organization development as a process of diagnosis, taking action, re-diagnosing, and taking new action. This process assumes a distinct form in organization development that is called action research model. Basically, this model is essentially a mixture of three ingredients. First one, the highly participative nature of organization development, and then the consultant role of collaboration and co-learner, and the iterative process of diagnosis and action. Basically, this is the model which follow a logical progression of events, a series of phases that unfolds over time. An important part of managing an OD programs well is to execute each steps well. According to Werner Berg, basically there are 7 phases or steps of organization development program. We can see from the slide that is your first steps, that is your entry. We can say it also problem identification. This stage usually begins when a key executive in the organization or someone with power and influence senses that the organization has one or more problems that might be solved with the help of an OD practitioner. Contract between the consultant and the client is what initiates the interface. After the contact, the consultant and the client begin the process of exploring with one another the possibilities of a working relationship. During this process, the consultant assesses lots of issues. First one, the probability of relating with the client. And then secondly, the motivation and the values of the client. Thirdly, the client's readiness for change. And then the extent of resources available. And finally, potential leverage points of change. This is the basically the entry phrase. Basically, it represents the initial contact between consultant and client, exploring the situation that leads the client to shape a consultant and determining whether the problem or opportunity the client and consultant constitutes a good match. So we will go for the second steps, that is your contracting. This is the things of your consultation with the behavioral science expert. During the initial contact, the OD practitioner and the client carefully assess each other. The practitioner has his or her own normative developmental theory or frame of reference and must be conscious of those assumptions and values. Sharing them with the client from the beginning establishes an open and collaborative atmosphere. Basically, contacting involves establishing mutual expectation, reaching agreement on expenditures of time, money, resources, and energy, and generally clarifying what each party expects to get from other and give to the other. We say more about entry and contracting on the next chapter, and then we can say it elaborately that unlike other types of contract, the OD contract states 3 critical areas: what each expect to get from the relationship, And secondly, how much time each will invest, when, and at what cost. And finally, the ground rules under which the parties will operate. And third step, that is your diagnosis. This is the very important stage in which data gathering and preliminary diagnosis. This step is usually completed by the OD practitioner, often the conjunction with organization members. It involves gathering appropriate information and analyzing it to determine the underlying causes of organizational problems. Basically, a diagnosis is the fact-finding phase, which produces a picture of the situation through interviews, observations, questionnaire, examination of organizational documents, and the information. This is the things of your diagnosis phase, and after that, we'll go for the fourth step, that is your feedback. Feedback to a key client or group. Because action research is a collaborative activity, the diagnostic data are feedback to clients, usually in a group or work team meeting. The feedback is a step in which members are given the information gathered by the OD practitioner, helps them determine the strengths and weaknesses of the organization or the department under study. Basically, feedback represents returning the analyzed information to the client system. The clients exploring information for understanding, clarification, and accuracy, and the client owning the data, their picture of the situation and the problems and opportunities. This is the steps 4, that is your feedback, and after that we'll go for the fifth steps, that is your planning change. Planning change, that is your joint action planning. The OD practitioner and the client members jointly agree on further actions to be taken. This is the beginning of the moving process. We already know about that is Lane's change model, that was unfreezing, changing or moving, and the refreezing. This is the second phase of Lewis change model. At this stage, the specific action to be taken depends on the culture, technology, and environment of the organization, the diagnosis of the problem, and the time and the expense of the intervention. Planning change involves the clients deciding what action steps to be taken based on the information they have just learned. Alternative possibilities are explored and critiqued. And after that, the sixth steps, that is your intervention or action. This stage involves the actual change from one organizational state to another. It may include installing new methods and procedures, reorganizing structures and work designs, and reinforming new behaviors. Such actions typically cannot be implemented immediately, but require a transition period as the organization moves from the present to a desired future steps. That means plans for action are selected and deployed intervention, implementing sets of action designed to correct the problems or seize the opportunities. This is the things of your 6 steps intervention. And after that, this is the last stage, that is your evaluation, data gathering after action. Because action research is a cyclical process, you can say it is a iterative process, repetitive process. Data must also be gathered from after the action has been taken to measure and determine the effects of the action and to feed the results back to the organization. This in turn may lead to re-diagnosis and new action. Basically, evaluation represents assessing the effects of the program. What is successful? What changes occurred? What were the causal mechanisms? Are we satisfied with the result? All of these issues as a OD consultant and HR leaders we have to consider. Actually, these steps are straightforward and logical in a description, but in practice, they often overlap a great deal and look more like an evolving process than a linear progression. The most important point is that each step builds the foundation for subsequent steps. Therefore, each step must be executed with care and precision. For example, if expectations are not clear in contracting phrase, this mismatch will surface later in unmet expectations and dissatisfaction. Or if the analysis of the data during the diagnosis phase is incorrect, interventions may not be appropriate. So we have to be very concerned about holding all of these seven steps of action research model. So according to Warner Barth, these are the seven steps, that is your entry, contracting, diagnosis, feedback, planning change, intervention, and lastly, that is your evaluation. So that's all about the action research model. And thank you. Thank you for watching.